Hey boys and girls, so today we're going to try and start shortening that chassis back there, and we got somewhat instructions. So let's get to work today. Alright, so today we're going to start working on the chassis since it's finally in the garage. Myers Manx, I think it's 14.25-inch shorter chassis is what I believe it is. I'm going to look that up. I know some buggies are 14.5, 14.25, and 14.125. And some are only 10 inches shorter. So, the little eyeballs. Anyways, we're going to get the chassis all marked out with what time we got today and figure out where we're going to shorten it from. We do have somewhat instructions from the internet. Yeah, the internet. But this is information that Volkswagen actually sent to the dealers back in '68 because they realized that Volkswagen places were going to be shortening the chassis, and I guess they wanted to have some info so they could reduce lawsuits maybe. Not exactly sure why, because they didn't make it in buggy. But the problem with these instructions is they are for a European buggy. That there's two styles of these European buggies they made, and one was like 10 inches shorter and the other one was 12 inches. In America we have 14-inch shorter buggies, but as you can see, they're showing here how they modified their chassis jigs that certain dealers would have, or you could make, and to move the points back, 10.74 inches. Alright, so they're showing how to do this on a jig table, basically. We don't have that. Alright, I mean, I guess we could make one, but I don't want to spend money on metal that's going to be used once. But it has good information, general information that you're going to need to know. If you're going to use the floor pans, they do a really nice job here of showing how they did it. And in the pictures, it comes out really nice. Makes the corners really nice. And everything looks really, really professional when they did it this way. So, if you're going to use your stock floor pans and shorten them, might be worth looking at. You can find this info on the Samba. Next thing I like too is the way they shortened it. On the bottom of the tunnel, the X lines up as where most people cut them, and the X doesn't line up. Like you get this V shape right here in the middle of that, and it looks horrible in my opinion. So anyways, good information. There is also another gentleman, I think on the Myers Manx Club's website, that showed how he shortened his. So good instructions there. Basically they are taking like a stepped notch out of it, and then they're cutting the bottom pan here on the X right where they'll meet back up again. And they drilled out all the spot welds, made it look pretty good. But not bad instructions. So we're going to take some of the knowledge from this and some of the knowledge from the man on the Myers Manx Club website that shortened his, because this is 14.25-ish to be shortened, and those instructions there are for 10 and 12 inches. And apply both of them to this. And try and make a set of we got floor pans, but try and make a chassis out of this thing. One thing we want to do is I want to keep the emergency brake cable. Might try and keep the heater, control tube, and the fuel line's not a big deal. I do plan replacing the fuel line, so if I have to cut that, not a big deal. Obviously, you got to keep the clutch cable and throttle cable tubes. So that's probably one of the first things I'll get to, is actually cutting the welds out on here, so that this can be freed up. And I believe there's some spot welds right back here too. And that's probably what we're going to do. One thing I got to do too is put these rear supports on. That might be the first job order of the day, so we have some measurement points. Plus, I want to make sure the chassis is square already. Go some diagonals and side to side and all that fun stuff. So anyways, time for me to get to work. Alright, first order of business was to get the shift rod out. To get the shift rod out, there's a little plate in between the beam here. Takes two 10mm bolts to take out. And then if your transmission's off and your shifter's out, you can, and the coupler's off, you can slide it forward all the way out through the front. You might have to get a screwdriver or something. What I used on the back is I used a broom handle to put through where the nose cone goes from the transmission, goes through the chassis there, and pushed it as far as I could forward so I didn't have to get my hands super greasy because it is covered in grease. And then from there I used a screwdriver to push it a little bit forward, catch it up here, and pull it out. And here it is. Now you will notice they are not straight. They have a bend to them. Okay? I don't know if that shows up or not. But these things do have an arc. Alright, so they're straight for about 3 feet or so, and then right about where that little ring is, which you need to keep that little ring, that's your snap ring for your bushing. There's a bend right there, and it bends up. And the reason being is it's got to go over that torsion tube back there, you know? So it's got to go straight, 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 and then right about where it flares out on the chassis there is where the little kick up of a bend is so that it can reach to the transmission. Something to think about when you go to shorten that tube. You need to keep that kick up in there a little bit. So after doing some research, I found conflicting information. We're going to shorten it 14.5. And the reason being is they're supposed to have an 80-inch wheelbase, and the chassis, now of course this thing's probably not aligned and all that in the rear, but it's measuring like 94 3/4-ish on the wheelbase, and you could adjust that with the rear toe of the arms and all that. So we're going to take 14.5 out of it, and that would get us pretty close to 80-inch wheelbase. And plus, with the thickness of the body, where they have these lips, let's see here. The lips, yeah, here. Where the body comes down, right there, they have, sorry for someone been around, where the body comes down, it has a lip that's laid in fiberglass and comes over this, or it's supposed to. The deal with fiberglass is it's thick, and when they start with a point here, it's adding that way, the way the molds are made. So I'd rather be a little short and have a little clearance there as compared to not having enough, and I've seen people have to cut and grind their body. Don't want to do that. So we'll go 14.5. Although I've seen other reports saying 14.25, I think a 1/4 inch will give us a little leeway on the body there. Plus, once this is shortened, I can always move those if I have to a little bit. So anyways, next order of business, I probably want to take off these little heater controllers. I've already cut my brake lines because those brake cables won't be used again. And after that, probably want to break the tack welds loose on that cross member piece. And then from there, we can start laying out the marks on the chassis since we know what size we're going to cut it to. So let me get back. Alright, so we've leveled the chassis out. And what I've done is taking 14.5 inches out. I'm starting a 1/2 inch behind the emergency brake bracketry here. And reason I'm starting right there is this is a good known point. Plus, if I start a little farther back, I don't have to get my cutting wheel right up against it. And it just gives me an easier measurement point from. So, made a line a 1/2 inch back from that. And then took a level, torpedo level, since the chassis is level. And I put it on here and I leveled that, you know. And then made a line, measured back 14.5 inches, made some marks, put a line across to connect the dots, and then the same thing, leveled this, and did that on both sides. So now, it's time for the point of no return, time to cut it. So let me get you guys set up, maybe I'll do a time lapse or something. Okay, so we got it all cut all the way around. Popped it up with a little screwdriver. Let's see if we can get this thing off. Looks like it wants to come off. Let me put the camera down. There's little tubes there. Here. Okay, let's come over here. Let's see what we got. I nicked my emergency cable, but I think it'd be alright. So, these two right here, the emergency brake cables. Alright, over here, let's see. That one's throttle cable. The one below it is the clutch cable. This is fuel line. These two right here, going down here and spreading out, are the heater ducts. I kind of want to keep those. These are the ones that actually go back and move back there. So we'll have to see what we can do with that. I might be putting a little sleeve over those, I don't know. You know, we'll see what we can do. So there are brackets right here holding on these e-brakes, which keeps them really close to the top. Now, from what they're saying is to clamp these together, measure how much you're taking out, move these together, and weld them on and all that. So we're going to try our best with that. See what we can do there. So, boys and girls, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to remove all the spot welds right here, because what I want to do is keep the bottom plate, which is what's keeping this all up right now, and move it forward. So I'm going to have to drill spot welds out here too eventually. But I need to get this piece off here, which is the lip of this top tunnel piece, and then we can go from there. So I'll get to work on that. Alright, boys and girls, so we got the center section cut out here. We got all the spot welds drilled off for the piece of metal that was here, and it's hard to, I can't really show you, but we got a lot of the spot welds drilled out there. So what we're going to do is basically this section here is going to overlap here, and then we're going to re-plug weld all the spot welds, and that will make a much stiffer thing, just like how it was stock. It's two pieces spot welded together. So we're going to basically be redoing that. I think I am going to take out the stock seatbelt bolt holes, because it's just a plate that is spot welded on in there. Looks like 3 on each side. And that way I have the German fitting, in there, and this is a fairly decent metal. And then we're going to and then I can just drill a hole and put that in before I close this all up. So I might do that. I might do something different with a bigger piece of metal, thicker, which might be where I go, because that is pretty thin looking there. But that's as far as we're going today, so we'll have to do another day to actually cut the bottom plate and shift this all around. But it's coming together. So don't forget to get out there, like, subscribe, get your projects done, and let's build some cars.